Yes, we are very delighted that you have once again invited us to be able to spare some time together, to share some time together, I should say, so that we may converse and discuss certain things that are perhaps important in your world and in our world also. For you know, whatever is happening in your world affects our world. Perhaps so many of you have not considered that. You may think that the world of spiritual realms is not connected at all with your world, except through mediums. That is not so. We are always connected with those in your world, with the world itself, the planet, and part of the universe. For all energy, all life is energy, and energy is infinite. Energy is invincible, is indestructible. And therefore, all intelligence, all minds are aware of that infinite energy throughout the universe. This evening, we will, of course, focus on the intention of what is happening in your world. And for many of you, situations have become very frustrating and also difficult. There are many reasons. Firstly, many souls have made that journey from the physical realm to the spiritual realm that perhaps were not expecting to do so at this time. And we know that you have had many restrictions upon whether you can be with your loved ones at that time of their transition. But I will reassure all and any of you that in that transition, we are with them. We are there not just at the time of transition, but before that, to prepare, to calm, to greet, to love, to be there in that time. For it is not one moment that happens. Perhaps you think when the physical heart stops, it is like one sudden jolt, but it is not so. It is a gentle preparation as the body begins to know that it is time to release the spirit, the soul, whatever you wish to call it, part of you that is eternal. And we are there during that time. Those who have known the person, been family to them, friends, are there. And whilst we appreciate that you feel bereft because you cannot be there, we are there. And we wish to reassure you of that once again. And so, as I have said many times, when there is sorrow for you as someone leaving your present life, so it is joy for those who greet them in my world, in our world. So here, there is of course emotion, but there is also a jubilation, a celebration of unification again. And I say that because I know that many of you have experienced this feeling of not being able to be with that loved one, and that they are alone. They are not alone, never alone. And of course, in due course, you will be reunited with them again in the spiritual realms. So we have felt your sorrow, those of you who have not been able perhaps to hold a celebration of their life, a service of celebration or some kind. But I would say to you, still celebrate their lives amongst yourselves. And perhaps when your circumstances have changed, you can then have a celebration of the times that you have shared together and will share again in the future. As for the changes in your world, they are vast. You see each day the numbers of those who have been officially registered as making that transition because of the pandemic, which is in your world. But there are many more who are making that transition. Those numbers are not given to you on a daily basis. Normally, people die in great numbers and you don't know anything about it. There is starvation and deprivation and war happening in your world. And maybe you see on your televisions some of that information, but you don't get a number of people who have died. So when you see these huge numbers, remember that that is not all of the people who are taking their transition in that 24-hour period. There are many more making that transition for various reasons. Some have their life taken from them by another human being. Some by that it is the natural time for their physical body to have completed its sojourn here upon the earth. So many, many reasons and many souls making that journey. And we are there with them, all of them. And then the changes in your lives. Perhaps some of you think to begin with, maybe it's good not to have to go to work. But then there are the considerations of not being able to do all the things that you would normally do. And frustration begins to build. And we understand that. And we try to help. For those of you especially who feel that frustration, simply a thought, and we can be there to help, to bring about a peace, a healing energy, which brings a peace and understanding. But beyond that also, the frustration of the economic situation in your world. That, of course, makes a difference on all those who exist in your world. And that will be a challenge going forward for the many who perhaps hold the power of nations, but for the many of you who will need to pick up the pieces and move forward, perhaps making big changes in your life. For indeed, this period of change will make changes that will be lasting changes in your world. You will not be able to go back to exactly how you were before, because you have changed. You have lived in a different environment, probably different to anything you have experienced before. And that will have changed you. And so it should. Because every challenge is an opportunity for learning, for growth. A challenge is essential in your life, or you would simply become idle, lazy, uncaring. Nothing would be relevant. If you were to think of life like a desert, where there is nothing but just sun and sand and cacti. That would what it would be like if there were no challenges. Because in order for there to be growth, there needs to be rain. And therefore challenges bring forward the energy that enables growth. And through that challenge, you become a soul growing And that is what you came to your world to do, to learn special lessons when you are amongst others of many different cultures, languages, religions, every difference that you can think of. And it is in that mixture that you find the challenges. When you come to our world, you will be with people of like mind. And so there will be a different journey, a different aspect of life. And so this school of life that you are attending is important that you learn from it. That is why you chose to be here, to learn, to experience. And so consider well during this time, what can you learn from this? Because you have your individual journey of your lifetime, but each one of you is responsible collectively for the evolutionary pathway of mankind. What you do makes a difference in your world. For every action, a reaction. And so therefore, you are all responsible for where you take the pathway of mankind, and therefore where you take your planet, the effects upon your planet, which have been very destructive over recent times in many, many ways. Destructive to the planet's atmosphere, to the living creatures which share its surface with you, to the climate, to so many things, huge changes, that if they continue, will destroy great parts of this planet. So think, is there somewhere a reason to perhaps put a break on this, to say, stop, think again. How can we do things differently? How can we learn and progress without destructive effects on our planet and on each other? This is a time for consideration of change. And therefore, each of you should take a little time to think, how can you change going forward? How can you change your life? What else, perhaps, can you do that could make a difference in your own life and in the evolution of this planet, which you have the custodianship of? But remember, the universal energy is all balancing and will always step in when there is a need. So we share these thoughts with you because you have this difficult time in your world. And we want you to know that we are very supportive of you throughout this. A thought to those in the spiritual realms is responded to in some way. So when you feel that need, simply think and we will respond. Not necessarily to give you what you want, because that is not always our ability to do so. You have your own rudder, if that is a correct word, to steer your journey. We are not here to live your life for you or to tell you how to live your life. We can guide and help and sustain, and will do so. And so we would be willing, Stephen, if necessary, or if desirous, to accept some questions at this time.
Yes, certainly, thank you. So if anyone would like to put a question to the Spirit Controls, to Jackson and the group working there, please press on the button for raise hand. I know Alv is monitoring any questions coming through YouTube. And we have one from Kathleen Fligg. I'm going to turn your microphone on, Kathleen, if you'd like to pose your question, please.
I would like to ask, is it going to change the way we educate others, the educational system?
When you say, is it going to change? Are you going to change it?
Yes, are we going to change it?
To is it going to change? Remember, you are the custodians. And yes, if you are asking this question, then you must think it is necessary. Yes? Do you agree? Are you asking the question because you think it is necessary to change the way we educate?
Yes.
Yes, and I agree with you, it is. But it is not the virus that will do that. It is the people, mankind. If they learn from this challenge, then they will change. And that, as I have said, is in your hands. You are the custodians at this time of your world. I have to, we keep putting this back because so many we hear asking us to do it. We cannot. We can help and sustain, but we cannot change the evolutionary pathway of your planet. You are its custodians. But yes, indeed, many things should change and must change for the benefit of your world and everything that survives upon its surface and in its oceans and in its atmospheres.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question is from Farah Arga. I hope I pronounced your name correct, and I've unmuted you, Farah, if you'd like to say your question.
Hi, I understand that we would never go back to being like we were, but when do you see or expect some sort of normalcy occurring? What do you think the timeline would be on that? Where we would
Again, that is in your hands. You ask us questions that we cannot answer because it depends on how you progress dealing with this virus. The virus is a challenge, a test, and how you learn to handle it will depend on the changes. The changes that you make are small steps, and you will then see what happens. And if someone gets the chance to go back to how they were, and they go back to how they were, then have they made any progress? No. And therefore there has to be a repercussion to that. So the timeline for us is not something that we can give to you. We see the change in the energy in parts of your world that you do not see. Parts of what is happening in your world is kept very secret from other cultures, and you are not always aware of this. And so it is not possible for us to predict, nor would we do so. Because if I was to say to you, in X number of weeks, everything will be fine, it will not. That would be inappropriate, and it would be giving you something which we cannot give to you, because this challenge is for those in your world. We can help, but we cannot define it. The definition of it is in your hands. Those who are trying to produce a vaccine, that has changed drastically how people are looking at that science. Industry has changed from making one production to something different. Because of what has happened, your health carers will now be better equipped for the future than if this virus had not happened. Do you understand that?
Yes, yes, I understand that.
So this is not just for now. from the difficulties now will come betterment in the future. And so it is an ongoing, it is like a rolling stone. It continues to go forward and gather as it goes. And so all of the things that seem to have been very destructive, out of some of those will come constructive results. And that is how you need to consider this going forward. Live in the moment, try to build for the future in everything that you can, but do not try for a line in the sand, for there isn't one. And this is one of the problems in your world. Everyone seems to have a timeline because of what has happened with communication, the vast increase of communication in your world. Everyone has much more time, moment, haste to complete this, to do that. And so time has become very specific, and yet time is non-specific. You have made hours in your world. You have made a time zone on your world according to how the planet revolves and moves. But when you leave your world, you will not have that time zone anymore. And time is irrelevant then, for time is eternal. And we haste you, hurry you, ask you to consider that, to try to take away the lines of time a little and to work in the moment. For what you do in this moment affects what happens in the next one. So how you handle this one will be making for the next moment.
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
You are very welcome. You have some scientific connection, yes?
I'm sorry, Jackson. I just accidentally muted her, and just try and find the name again. One moment, please. Farah, I'm awfully sorry, Farah. So if
you see, you are in such a hurry, Stephen, and I have just said to take time, have I not?
Sorry.
No, I don't have any scientific background.
No, I did not say background. You have some sort of scientific connection somewhere.
I just, I don't know, maybe I do. I have no idea.
Look around you, and you will see that there is someone who has a scientific connection. And that someone is looking to work to help this situation that prevails in your world. I ask you to find that connection. It will be good for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Sorry about that. Our next question is from...
I will forgive you only because it is you.
Thank you very much. The next person is Jen Paul. I'm unmuting you, Jen, if you'd like to speak, please.
Hello, thank you. At this time, I'm imagining so many souls crossing over and the spirit world being so very busy. At the same time, while we are being shut in and feeling a little helpless, as you had talked about earlier, with respect of not being able to hold people's hands during this time. Is there some way we can benefit those that are crossing over, or in some way to help the spirit world? Is there something that you would recommend?
Yes, I can pick up a little from where I spoke before, in that if I can ask you to be comforted a little in that during that transgression, trans movement there, it's finding the correct analogy that I want to use, because they do not just leave your world and come to ours in a moment. You understand that? There is a period of movement, The physical body is struggling, but the soul is gaining in strength because the soul is already surrounded by those from my world, our world, to prepare that soul. Do you understand that? So
Yes.
whilst the physical body is becoming depleted, weary, the soul is strengthening. And therefore, if I can reassure you of that, then there is this great greeting, this great celebration to welcome the soul into our world. If you can be part of that, if you could help to, in your minds, wish them well on that journey, though that is difficult, we really understand. But for instance, someone who has a child who is very, very sick, they will keep saying to that child, you will get well, you will get well. And the child tries to do that to please the parents. Do you understand?
Yes.
But the child knows in its soul that its journey here in your world is short, is brief. And so there comes a time when the parents, those who love the child, seem to come to an understanding of that. And at that moment, the child's soul knows that it can release and go. And the same can be for adults. When you give that permission, that if it is their time to make that transition, you give your permission, you wish them well, you give them your love and your blessing, that helps them tremendously because they are fighting to stay with you. And yet the physical body is depleted, is weary, and cannot sustain that. So certainly your help, and I understand, we understand how difficult that is. But you asked if there's something you could do to help. I am answering you truthfully and something very valuable. As far as helping us in our world, that helps because then we know that the transition is smooth, that the love from your world carries them forward and the love that greets them from our world carries them onward. And so it becomes smoother in that transition from one realm to another. I don't particularly like the word transition, but I cannot find a better word that I want to use that covers that beautiful change. And for the soul, it is beautiful because it becomes free of the limitations of the physical body and the physical sickness. Does that assist a little in your question which you asked?
Yes, thank you.
I know it's difficult to do because you want your loved one to get well. And if it is possible for them to do so, they will. But if it is their time to make that transition, then you giving them your love, your permission, your joy helps tremendously.
Very good.
That's a very good point that you made, and I am pleased to be able to answer that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question now is from Pamela Wilkinson. I'm unmuting you, Pamela.
Thank you. And thank you so very much for coming to us. I have a question. I ask for your guidance and possibly some advice about the situation, in the sense that I am filled with, I'm filled with rage many times and anger at the people who are in power in this situation, who I see abusing that power and who will not learn the lessons that need to be learned, I feel, about the planet, and who are in, just greedy and terrible. And it is not my purpose in mentioning this to criticize them, but it is for me very difficult when I think of the great changes that are needed and my own personal role in it. I feel very helpless, materially speaking, And I know I was told once by the spirit world that anger is misuse of energy.
Yes.
And I do not want to direct it at these people, but they seem to have a lot of control. And can you please perhaps give some counsel as to how to transform that or work with that? Because I know that it can also be
The
destructive.
question is becoming longer than the answer.
Sorry.
Shall I begin the answer?
Yes, please.
Yes, because I have your question. Yes. First of all, when you are angry at these people, and I perfectly understand, you are feeding their power. Anger is feeding their power. What you need to do is deplete their power by directing peace to them, by directing the opposite energy. When there is something that is destructive, you need to direct constructive energy to change it. So instead of using your anger in this way, change it to using peace, change it in a different way, because peace depletes their power, their domination. That is the word that I wish to use. I want to say to you that the people in your world, the young people, are going to make a difference to your world. You have already seen the young people, how they are going to stand up and fight for this planet, how they are going to fight for peace and to stop these dictators. As these young people begin to grow a little more in stature, and there are more of them, and those who are older, and many who are older are in power, begin to leave your planet, your world, so this change will grow. It isn't to do with the number of years. It is just that the souls that are coming to your world now have a different plan, have a different motivation. They will make changes in your world. But it was not coming fast enough, not coming quickly enough. And so something had to change to stop that, to give time for people to think differently and to think just as you are thinking, that these people who hold the power of nations are not doing their jobs well. And we see that, we know that, just as you do. But to feed dominance with anger just fuels it. I know that might be difficult to understand, but it is so. Feed it with the opposite. Feed it with peace. If you see them as red, then feed them with white. The opposite, whatever is opposite, green, anything. It just depends how you visualize this in your mind or how you feel it. Whatever you think they have that is feeding this power, drain it by taking away, by producing the opposite effect to deplete it. So to send peace to the minds of those who hold the power of nations, to send joy, to send love. You are bombarding them with the things that they seem to have lost or not take any notice of or not care about. And when I spoke of the number of deaths on your planet, this is why I said, now you are seeing a number of deaths each day, but that has always been happening. It just was never recorded before. And those men and women of power of nations were often the cause of those large numbers of deaths. So this is why the planet has to change as a whole. There has to become a balancing. And to do that, you have to balance, you say the seesaw, is that correct? Yes. You have something that the children sit on?
Oh, yes. Seesaw, yes, the seesaw.
So you do not keep feeding one end of the seesaw, you feed the opposite and bring a balance. And so try, I know how difficult that is, to turn your anger into creative energy, into positive energy, into energy that brings peace and life and care and healing. Healing is a great energy to send out And many people have said, why would we send healing to destructive people? Well, because you can heal the destructive energy within them if you do it, if you can find it in your heart to direct that healing energy to them. You have a great choice of question, and it is a subject that is of great importance, because you are quite right. The power that is held in nations is not being conducted properly in the interests of the planet and of the life upon the planet's surface and in its atmosphere. Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next next question is Sheila Wellman. Sheila, I've unmuted you.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, Jackson.
Hello, Sheila.
Hi, Jackson. My question follows on from the last lady, actually, and from what you just said. What's happening is unprecedented, but in the past, Spirit has shown us that they can do things to help us, i.e. in the war, they would apport food to the soldiers. Is there not nothing that can be done to ignite the vital energies in those here that can help to direct energies to the people that need it, like what you just said, the leaders or the ill? Is there not nothing Spirit can do to help us with that?
Do you really think that we are doing nothing, Sheila?
No, but it is unprecedented, and we just want to do more, don't we?
You may well want to do more, so do more, because we are doing what is possible to be done. There are certain things that have to progress in accordance with natural law. If your world has moved to a point of danger, then it cannot, like I said before, you cannot draw a line and make it all good. It has to gradually recoup the direction that it has taken, that has taken it to a dangerous state. We cannot refreeze the polar ice caps. We cannot do that. You have allowed that to happen. So the danger that has come to your world has to be retrieved slowly, just as it was created. And so to think that we would be doing nothing would be extremely foolish to do so. Of course, you are the guardians of your planet at a physical level, but at a spiritual level, we are always working to help and to guide in your world to the extent that we can. All we can do is influence minds and souls. We cannot make people do anything. That is your responsibility. It is part of this school of learning that you came to this lifetime to learn. And if you can make a difference, then do it, because we are always working with you to sustain you, to empower you, to give you the power to make a difference in your world. But this is your world and your responsibility. Many things will come from this. As I have said already, many industries have changed what their products are. People who had business have changed their business to do something different that have already benefited. People who ran expensive restaurants are now feeding people just to help them, those who need food. They have changed. That is a good move. That is something that has been inspired, that they saw, in order that they had a talent that they could turn and make it useful to the needs of the now. That is what more people need to do, to look to what they can do now to make a difference. And everyone has abilities, gifts, and talents, from a very small amount to a great, great amount. And it is down to the people of your world to begin to see that, to enact it, and to do it.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Not foolish, but hopeful. But you already gave me the idea to direct energies to the leaders. So I thank you for that. And thanks for the opportunity, Jackson. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anyone who is doing the work is doing a good job.
Thank you, Sheila. Next question is Elaine. Elaine Brown.
Are you making sure that all these people are ladies, Stephen?
Well, I know the rules, but I have to say they've been very kind to me tonight. Chance has been very kind.
Most people will not understand what that means.
I think probably most of them won't understand. Yes.
It's just to ensure that you know that when we are dead, we do not lose our sense of humor, because that is very much part of the essence. And Stephen knows that I very much like the energy of the ladies. So I prefer questions from ladies, and that is meant to be humorous.
Hello, Jackson.
Is there a voice there?
Yes.
Hello, Jackson.
Ah, yes, I hear.
I'm wondering how far advanced spirit of the higher realms knew of the knowledge of this virus, and on top of that, whether they were influencing the closed groups that meet and communicate with yourselves.
I'm not really sure that I understand about closed groups that communicate. Many people and groups and alone communicate with the spirit world. So I'm not quite sure what the intention is there. Yes, of course, we we are aware of the virus. We are aware of its origin. And I can assure you, I think very much that this virus is not man-made. It is not. Many people have said it is. It is not man-made. That I can assure you of. It has evolved from a very low level of life form, and that has moved up through the food chain, if you will, into animals, mammals, and so has produced the virus. So yes, of course, we are aware of that. We know of its origins, but as I have said already, it must now run its course. We cannot interfere in the evolutionary pathway of your planet. We can affect and direct and influence and try to guide you into doing the right things at the right time. But you have to have the free will of your life. That is part of your entitlement, that you can choose to do what you wish to do. That is not something we can take away from you or anyone, but we try to influence that you will do what is productive, what will help you to learn. And so those things will be challenging. It is not easy to learn. It is always challenging, and it's not always what you want. Children don't like to go to school, but if they don't go to school and learn anything, how will they learn how to make money to live? And that has started to happen a lot at times, where people have been disassociated with learning and knowledge and just expect to live. And that is an aspect that depletes the energy of your world. And you have seen many destructive elements coming from that, where young people in particular, but also older people, taking advantage of them to use them for the wrong reasons, to bring a great deal amount of drug addiction into your planet, into the people who will exist and live on your planet. If those children, those young people, perhaps had been more interested in learning and understanding, they would have been able to put that understanding to something more productive than the destructive aspect, not just the destructive aspect of what these man-made drugs can do to the body, but also what their effects do to the mind and therefore to humankind as a whole. So therefore there are many things which must be taken account of in your world as to how things have moved in a different direction. Many years ago, it was a different kind of war. Man took up arms against his fellow man. Now you have a war against drugs, against this virus, and hopefully, perhaps it brings a collective fight against the whole of these things, that it is not one country against another. It is mankind against the destruction that is happening on the planets and with the people who exist in your world.
Thank you, Jackson.
Thank you, Elaine. Are you okay to carry on?
Yes, I am just aware of the I would like to say the little girl, but she is no longer a little girl.
Yes, I understand.
Yes, I think she would like to just make a change, yes.
Okay, thank you. Jackson is referring to another control that was part of the group called Amy. So if we just wait a few moments while there's a transition now, as Jackson hands over to Amy.
Yes, Stephen, we wish to just step in because we wish to let you know that there has been much within the questions put to the loud one, that what are we doing to help in your world? And of course, through the work that we do with the healing energies, that are not necessarily always just a healing energy as in a power of mind, but to inspire people to work towards new medicines and new treatments in your world. Do you understand that?
Yes, certainly.
Because people seem to think that we should just make you well, but no, we need to enable you to make yourselves well, because our world is our world and yours is yours. And when you have chosen as a soul to live a life on your world, then we can only work through the mind, through the soul level, to inspire and to guide. And over many ages, inspiration has brought about new medicines, new inventions that have helped your world to progress. So many men and women have received a thought in their mind, which then enabled them to build a machine or to create a medicine that made a difference in your world. And I would remind you, where did that thought come from? Into that mind to make those devices, to make those medicines. They came from the universal consciousness, directed by those in our world. And therefore we are constantly helping for new medicines to be derived. If you look back over years about the ailments that existed that were not able to be treated, that can be treated now quite successfully for many people, that did not happen by accident. That has been guided through the minds, through the universal consciousness, into the minds of men and women. But then you have to put that into practical application in your world, because yours is a physical world that needs a physical medicine. And therefore we need to inspire you and guide you to make those medicines. And therefore that has happened over many stages of the evolution of your world and is still ongoing. Do not think that we are doing nothing at this time to help you, to inspire men and women in your world to make new medicines for all different kinds of illness, new treatments, not just through medicine, but through many forms of treatment that can help those who need it in your world. It just seemed that to me, the loud one was not really putting that into the discussion,
Yes.
as though it had been forgotten. And I wanted to make that point very strongly.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's a lot clearer, I think, for everyone.
We are very honored to have been able to have this opportunity to have this time to talk to you, all of you, to be with you. As we have been collected here with our child, our medium, so many of your own loved ones and spirit workers have been with you. And those of you who know that will have felt their presence, because there is this huge web of connection of the life force, and it touches each one. And those of you who know that the life force, the web of life, connects us all together as one, you will have felt your loved ones perhaps, and your workers, your spirit workers, helpers, whatever you give them name to is irrelevant. It is those who work with you for the betterment of all mankind. And we thank you all who work in that way. Those of you who work to administer the healing energy, to deliver the comfort to those who are grieving the loss of a loved one, to those who teach the wisdom of understanding of the spirit presence and the power of it, and how it can help you, all of you, in your lives, to know that you are eternal beings and that you are invincible. And when you say to yourself, I am invincible, so the power flows to you. You have opened the door. You have made the connection. Feel it. Know that nothing and no one can ever destroy you, for you are energy, and energy can never be destroyed. It can only change its form. When you connect to the invincibility, you empower your energy, you change its form, you switch on a light in your world, and you radiate light and love and healing to those who need it. And for this, we thank you all for working with us in your world.
Thank you very much.
We will now begin to withdraw, Stephen.
Okay.